Mick Steele introduced a new car to the Snap-on IHRA series. This car had one very important ingredient for success: a major sponsorship. Mick Steel hit the trail on the International Hot Rod Association with a vengeance, having a good degree of success. This week, In the Driver's Seat takes a look at the incredible story of Mick Steel. Stay tuned. Receiving a major sponsorship is a very important asset, almost necessary to a successful professional drag racing team, especially if you're running on the IHRA circuit with a supercharged alcohol funny car. Well, in late 1996, this week's driver on In the Driver's Seat did such a feat. Hi, everyone. I'm Ted Jones, and we're studying this week the alcohol funny car team of a man who did very well in the 1997 season. He was relatively unknown, but made a commitment to run all the IHRA events and made a positive statement when he went to the IHRA President's Cup event at Budds Creek, Maryland, and came out the winner. We're talking about the man who occupies that seat over there working on the clutch plate. His name is Mick Steel. One of the obligations of having a major sponsorship, any driver motorsports will tell you, is making personal appearances for that sponsor. Such is the case with Mick. We went to Ditch Witch in Perry, Oklahoma. Mick's sponsor, to catch up with him and ask him about his drag racing experience.
I basically started as soon as I got my driver's license. Had a street car, had a local drag strip, and went out there and started learning about drag racing. I mean, it was 15 years ago, and just cut my roots bracket racing. From there, I guess you can say the addiction got worse and worse. Spent more money, bought faster cars, had a dragster, campaigned that for 5 years, and then we stepped up to the funny car back in 1993. And since that time, that's what we've been running as funny car. The funny car wasn't the first class that I'd picked. I'd actually had sold my bracket car, and I'd bought an alcohol dragster. And another guy had talked to me about running a funny car and the opportunities that we had in the Southeast doing match racing with a funny car. With alcohol dragster, we're kind of limited on what we could do. So actually I had this alcohol dragster. We changed our mind, as in me and my brother, and decided to go ahead and buy an alcohol funny car. That was in 1993. We bought a used funny car. It was a fuel car that was Larry Minor, Ed McCullough driven car. And we put that thing together and decided that we'd go match racing, and cut our teeth match racing, get used to the car, just get used to the feel of it, plus learn how to work on them. I mean, those things are, everything else I've ever driven, nothing compares to driving that funny car, let alone, working on it.
We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll take a look at Mick's successes during the 1997 season. Stay with us. Welcome back to In the Driver's Seat. This week, we're looking at the Ditch Witch sponsored car of Mick Steel. This edition of In the Driver's Seat brought to you by Ditch Witch, the underground authority worldwide, and by Summit Racing Equipment, 30 years of low prices and expert advice. We'll take a look now at exactly how Mick Steel did in the 1997 season on the International Hot Rod Association circuit, beginning with the first event, All Pro Auto Parts, Darlington, South Carolina, the Winter Nationals, where Mick Steel would face in round number 1, Tony Bogolo. He lost to Tony in the first round, and then we stopped at the Spring Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, where Mick would face defending world champion Vaughn Smith, again losing in round number 1. However, qualifying for the first 2 events was very encouraging, but his luck was about to get even better at Budds Creek.
When we got there, it was really, we'd struggled at the first 2 races that we went to. And I had some questions about how we were running our clutch combination, so it was one of those races where I didn't really have a real good feeling going into it. I knew that there's some stuff that we had to work on, but, you know, hey, you're out there trying every race. So we did get out there, and I think we qualified number 7 at that race. And that was one of those Houdini acts where the car picked up the last qualifying run, you know, and put us into a good position. I mean, we never ran faster than that qualifying run all weekend long. The first round, you know, we were up against Bunny Burkett, you know, who was back from injuries, past world champion, and we knew that we couldn't take her too lightly. We got up there to make that pass, and evidently she had problems with throttle bracket. Something broke on her car. We went ahead and staged our car and made a pass through there, and I pitched the blower belt on the car. You know, ran like a 9-something. You know, but that was my first round of competition that I had won, you know, running IHRA national events. So we were pretty pleased with that. I mean, it was finally got over that stumbling block. Second round elimination, had to meet Mark Thomas, 4-time world champ. And we didn't have any idea what the car was going to do on Sunday because, you know, we hadn't even made a pass with it, you know, under power. So one thing I did know is whatever Mark and Rick Hickman were up to, you know, them guys know how to run. So I knew that I at least had to do my job as a driver. You know, we got up there, I got a whole shot on Mark, didn't see him all the way down the track. You know, there it was, you know. We had a 425 light, you know, to his 570, you know, ran quite a bit slower than him, but hey, we took the win, you know, which, I mean, that was beating a 4-time world champ. I mean, that was just another, you know, feather in our cap. I mean, if the day ended there, I would have been pleased.
And pleased he was. ESPN2's Brett Kepner was on Top End for this interview.
How many world champions can you beat in one day, buddy?
Hey, when it's your day, it's your day. I've been looking for a little racing luck the first couple races, and they didn't come our way, but you know, I'm just glad for Ditch Witch and everybody that's on board with me.
Yeah, you guys worked a long time with your match race cars just to get a sponsor. Now that you got a big deal, man, you couldn't have a better day than this so far.
Hey, I'm not complaining a bit. I mean, till today, I hadn't even won a round of IHRA competition.
No, it's tremendous. Congratulations, buddy.
Thanks.
On to the next round. Surface a car, next round, Von Smith, 1996 world champ. So we got up there, getting ready to do our thing. Von has a problem with his reverser. Can't make it down the track. Get a solo run into the final round. The excitement's just building and building. I mean, I just couldn't believe, you know, what was going on. You know, it was just, here I am, you know, going to the final round. So we got down there and found out, you know, that we were going to run Jimmy Rector, which is the 1997 world champ. I wasn't nervous going into the final round because, you know, we were running Jimmy Rector, which I'd matched race with him, and, you know, we'd been around the block a few times. I mean, I was just racing Jimmy, plus I was just pleased to be there. I mean, if my day ended there, hey, I was still happy.
But his day did not end there. He would face Jimmy Rector in that final after defeating 3 IHRA world champions. It was definitely a Cinderella story for Mick Steele. Meanwhile, over in Jimmy Rector's pit, he was pulling out all the stops, so to speak, putting on a brand new blower just for this final. However, Mick had a secret weapon of his own. No, it wasn't a blower. It was one of the most famous crew chiefs in drag racing, Rick Hickman. How did Mick fare in that final at Budds Creek, Maryland? You'll have to hang on while we take a short pause. We'll tell you when we return. Welcome back to Budds Creek, Maryland, as we take a look on in the driver's seat at Mick Steele, who is ready for that final against his own match race adversary, Jimmy Rector.
You know, we went to that final round. Jimmy had been kidding me about the lights that I've been cutting. He told me to leave my 420 lights back at the trailer, you know, and I agreed with him. I told him I would, you know. Then I told him I'd cut a 14 light on him, but, you know, we did, got up there to run him in the final, cut a 426 light on him, We ran a 6:20. He ran a 6:13. I mean, we took the win. I mean, it was the highlight of my racing career to this point. I mean, it was just an unbelievable day, and it was one of these deals where I was really numb to what we had really accomplished until that ride home. I mean, then it really sunk in that the years that I've worked at racing and even campaigning a funny car, that's your goal, is to win a national event, and we got there, we did it.
And when he did it, the crew was jubilant, to say the very least. However, down on top end, Brett Kepner found a very subdued winner.
There is nothing quite like the look of the face of a first-time winner when that helmet comes off. And what a day this guy has had. I mean, let's face it, you beat world champions left to right in the final round. You're 6:20, his losing 6:13.
Unbelievable. I told you earlier the driver had to do it, and we did it. Holy smokes, I can't believe it.
You had a car that was right there all day, but man, you have been impressive on the tree.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, but I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without Ditch Witch and collector cars and some of my other sponsors, Southern Speed. I mean, them guys do it all for me, especially my crew.
When you came out this year with the new deal, everybody thought, well, let's see what happens. They're just match racers. Guess what, buddy? You're a national event winner for your new sponsor. What a job.
I appreciate it.
Great job.
You killed him on the lights, man. You killed him, buddy. Way to go.
With that victory at the President's Cup in Budds Creek, Mick actually had a long shot at the World Championship if he could keep repeating. In the first round of competition at the IHRA Summer Nationals in Cordova, Illinois, it looked as if the Ditch Witch car might roll once again into victory lane. However, that was not going to be the case. In the semifinal round, he would face the Sherwin-Williams car of Scott Wise. Watch what happens. Mick is out ahead on Wise, and suddenly he has mechanical difficulties, losing at the 8th mile mark. What happened? Mick had exploded a clutch rather violently. All that was left was debris and pieces. However, Mick would pick up those pieces, so to speak, and move on to the next stop on the IHRA trail, that being the IHRA Northern Nationals at the Mid-Michigan Motorplex in Stanton, Michigan, where he would face defending world champion Vaughn Smith and go down to defeat. His next stop would be at the Autumn Chase Nationals at legendary Bristol International Dragway in Bristol, Tennessee, where he would pick up a first-round victory over Bobby Balcom. May he be on the way to the winner's circle one more time? Well, in the quarterfinals, he would have to stop 4-time IHRA world champion Mark Thomas in the Ethanol Performs car. Thomas had a little too much for Mick as he lost at that event. Then things would turn a bit bizarre as they move on to Norwalk Raceway Park, the Prolong Ohio Lottery World Nationals. Mick Steele lost a steering wheel. Believe me, he was unhappy to lose the race, but he was very happy to climb out of the car in one piece. The final stop for the IHRA trail would be at Darlington International Dragway in Darlington, South Carolina, where the season began. Mick Steele qualified, won the first round, and then in the quarterfinals, he wanted to defeat Larry Dobbs. Why? Because if he did, he would finish number 5 or better in the points. Dobbs went down to defeat narrowly. Mick Steele with a 6'11", 228 miles per hour. He was into the semifinals. The bad news, though, was that he would be facing the newly crowned International Hot Rod Association Alcohol Funny Car World Champion Jimmy Rector in that semifinal matchup. As usual, Mick Steele was first off the starting line, but he couldn't match the awesome power of Jimmy Rector, who picked up the win with a 6 flat at over 230 miles per hour. It was the end of the season for Mick Steele, but he had had a very satisfying and rewarding season after all. He finished number 5 in the points. That's exactly what he wanted to do to please his sponsor, Ditch Witch. We'll find out how he acquired that sponsorship when we return. You're watching In the Driver's Seat, this week featuring alcohol funny car driving standout Mick Steele. We're in Perry, Oklahoma, the home of Mick's sponsor, Ditch Witch. Part of that sponsorship obligation is to display his car at the Ditch Witch plant. That's what Mick is doing today. When he signed the sponsor at the conclusion of '96, though, he knew he would have to do something impressive in 1997.
Budget-wise, this year, we really took a big leap. I mean, after the 1996 season, you know, we sat down and talked with Ditch Witch, and we committed to running the 1997, you know, full IHRA schedule. Well, at that time, I figured to be able to do this, you know, and do it right, you know, we needed to buy a new car, we needed to buy extra motors, we needed to buy a new trailer, I had to buy a truck. I mean, we've spent, you know, you're talking $30,000 motors, you're talking extra blowers at $5,000 a piece, you're talking a $25,000 chassis, you're talking $10,000 into a, you know, fiberglass body, $40,000 for a trailer. I mean, the list just goes on the type of money that it takes to go out there and run this thing. You know, there was well over $150,000 spent on this racing operation this year. We're looking forward to next year for the 1998 season, because we have made, you know, some of the big investments, and we can concentrate on what it's going to take to make this car, you know, more competitive in the 98 season, and the ultimate goal is run for a world championship.
Now, Mick first got involved with Ditch Witch on a local basis through his local dealer, John Hall, in Georgia. Why would a local Ditch Witch dealer want to get involved in drag racing?
I think there's three things. The number one thing is fun and enjoyment. The employees get to participate in something that's exciting. Drag racing is exciting. The number two thing, I think, would be notoriety. People tell us, they see our name, they see the car, they see it on TV, they see Mick. And I think the third thing is just strictly promotional advertisement. You're out in the public. You're in an arena today that is seen. It's very visual. The marketplace for people in drag racing, automobile racing in general, is growing substantially. So I looked at it as a great vehicle to get our name out in front of the public and the people we do business with.
The Ditch Witch sponsorship is critical to Mick Steele's success, but what motivated him to seek this sponsorship?
Well, basically the way everything came around with my sponsorship was due to necessity. My brother had campaigned the car with me for a couple years, and he had an expanding family and responsibilities to take care of, and it was time for him to bow out and really hand the reins over to me. My situation was the money that it took to run this type of car, I just couldn't afford to do it out of my own pocketbook. So that's where the sponsorship stepped in, where I knew that if I was going to continue running funny car, that I needed to, you know, actively seek some sponsorship. The way the sponsorship with Ditch Witch actually started was the company that I work for and Ditch Witch worked on a mutual project utilizing Ditch Witch equipment, and I met with some of the key people with Ditch Witch while we were developing this piece of equipment for this specific use. I kind of almost feel like I fell into it, but sometimes that's what you have to do, is, you know, have a situation like that. Once we did, you know, I talked to him about what I've done, you know, and what I, you know, could do for him with the funny car. Got a proposal together and submitted it to the people at Ditch Witch and talked to them and just kind of informed them about motorsports. I mean, they didn't have a real grasp on what motorsports or what drag racing could do for them, and kind of educated it on that. And I mean, it was a learning experience for myself and for the people at Ditch Witch on how we can utilize this, you know, as in their marketing scheme and other things that are involved with it.
Many sponsors get very involved with the running of the race car, what race we're going to run, how we're going to set the car up. This is not the case with John Hall. He has a hands-off attitude.
I think one of the unique things in this group of people is that we don't have any desire, we being myself or our company, in meddling in anything that Mick does. We want to be a support group, and I think that's the proper way to look at it. We have a role to play, and he has a role to play. We do participate in going to races. He keeps us extremely informed on what's going on. But anything decision-wise as to how you take that automobile out there and make it run is entirely up to that group. And when you look at the style of his car, the painting of his car, and all the rest, there's nothing I could add to make any of that look any better than it does. So he runs his operation, and we support it.
We'll take a short break, but when we return, we'll find out more about Ditch Witch's overall motorsports program. Welcome back to Perry, Oklahoma, the home of Ditch Witch, who is the sponsor of this week's In the Driver's Seat subject, Mick Steele. Now, when Mick showed up at the drag strip with Ditch Witch on the side of his car, everyone asked, what is a Ditch Witch?
The Charles Machine Works is the corporation which builds Ditch Witch products. And those products are used all over the world to install utility, water lines, gas lines, sewer lines, electrical, telecommunications. And the only place we make them, of course, is right here in Perry, Oklahoma. We moved out to this facility in 1959, and we just had a few thousand square feet and started growing the company and having some success with selling our Ditch Witch products. And as that kept going, we kept expanding. And today we went from a handful of people and a small building to about 23 acres under roof and over 1,200 employees.
Ditch Witch's first involvement in motorsports, however, did not come through Mick Steele. You see, they first went to an NHRA event and hooked up with Joe Gibbs.
We were at an NHRA drag racing event and had the good fortune to meet Joe Gibbs. And Joe was competing there that day, and he started talking to us about a sponsorship and would we be interested. And it kind of just got started from there, and eventually we ended up signing a deal with Joe Gibbs Racing and getting into the NASCAR sponsorship of the number 18 car. And then also about that time, Ditch Witch of Georgia had gotten involved with one of their local contractors, and of course that was Mick Steel, and Mick was running a alcohol funny car and started wanting to do something there. And of course, we were a little bit skeptical, not knowing that much about racing ourselves, and we'd already just entered into this big deal. And he said, "Well, I'm going to do it. This is a great guy, and he's got a lot of drive, and I think this will be good for us." And we said, "Well, we'll kind of help as we go." And then here Mick runs a '97 season and ends up winning a national event, so it kind of caught our attention here. And of course, now we're talking about what for '98 we can put together and what makes the most sense for all of us.
Part of the display Mick Steele had at Perry, Oklahoma in the Ditch Witch plant was when he literally fired up his 2,000 horsepower supercharged alcohol-fueled funny car for the employees. Believe me, they were astounded and blown away at Ditch Witch's involvement in IHRA professional drag racing, to say the very least. After that impressive display, the executives and employees of the company lined up for a closer look at Mick's car and to meet Mick personally and get an autograph. Mick had a great '97, but what's ahead?
We feel that, you know, we can build from what we learned over the 1997 season and really concentrate on the 1998 season. For our main goal is, you know, to get Ditch Witch and get our racing team to a world championship.
This coverage of Mick Steele on In the Driver's Seat has been brought to you by Ditch Witch, the underground authority worldwide, and by the Roy Hill School of Drag Racing. Accommodations for our ESPN crew, courtesy of the Days Inn in Bristol, Tennessee. This is Ted Jones. Thanks for joining us. So long, everyone.